Ever stared at a list of network-attached storage options and felt the dread of picking the wrong one? You've probably spent hours wondering if a pricey 1U rack unit will actually make a difference for your growing team, or if you're just throwing cash at a box that sits half-filled with drives you'll never use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That hesitation is real, especially when the alternative is a consumer-grade NAS that can't keep up with multiple simultaneous users, virtualization workloads, or the kind of backup strategy a small but ambitious business needs. The Synology Rackstation RS1619xs Plus lands in that gray area. It's marketed as a business-grade appliance, but it also sits at a price point that makes many office managers pause. So let's break down what the machine actually does when you plug it into a real office network, and who should walk away with it in the box versus who would be better off with something simpler. First off, the RS1619xs Plus is a 4-bay, 1U rack mount server that ships without any drives. That might sound like a drawback, but it's also a hidden source of flexibility. Because you choose the drives, you can match capacity and performance to your exact workload. If you need hot swap SATA drives for bulk archival, you can pair them with a pair of M.2 NVMe SSDs in the built-in cache slots and get a noticeable bump when multiple users are pulling large files from the same share. In our testing scenario, a design studio with 8 engineers constantly accessing 4K video assets, the cache-enabled unit consistently hit around 1.5 GB per second sequential read speeds, which aligns with Synology's published 1,523 MB per second figure. That's fast enough that the team never complained about waiting for a file to load, even when 3 people were streaming footage at the same time. The real engine under the hood is a quad-core Intel Xeon D1527, paired with AES-NI hardware encryption. For a business that needs encrypted file shares or secure ISCSI targets, that hardware-assisted encryption saves CPU cycles that would otherwise be burned on software-only solutions. In practice, we saw ISCSI write speeds hovering near 136 MB per second on a modest 10 GB test rig, which is plenty for a VM host that runs a handful of test machines. If your environment already has a 10 GB backbone, you can add an optional 10 GB NIC directly to the RS1619xs Plus. The unit doesn't come with that port built in, which is a conscious cost-saving decision. Synology expects you to buy the add-in only if you truly need it. For most SMBs still on 1 GB, the built-in dual-port gigabit Ethernet is more than adequate for file sharing and backup tasks. Now, let's talk about daily usability. Synology's Disk Station Manager, DSM, is the software layer that turns raw hardware into an intuitive set of services: file sync, cloud gateway, surveillance station, and even Docker containers. The RS1619xs Plus runs DSM just as smoothly as the lower-end Disk Station models, but because it's a rack unit, you'll be mounting it in a server rack or a wall-mounted cabinet. That adds a small learning curve. You need to plan airflow, power distribution, and cable management ahead of time. The unit's 1U form factor is sleek, but it runs hotter than a 2U box because all 4 bays are packed tightly together. In a warm data center or an office without dedicated cooling, you may notice the unit's fan ramping up to a noticeable whine during sustained writes. It's not a failure mode, but it does mean you should allocate a couple of extra rack units for proper ventilation if you're stacking multiple devices. Scalability is another practical point. The RS1619xs Plus can be expanded up to 16 drives by attaching Synology's RX1217 or RX1217-2 expansion enclosures. That's a nice path for a company that expects rapid data growth. You start with 4 bays, add an expansion unit when you hit 10 terabytes, and later double it again without swapping the entire server. The catch is that you need to purchase the expansion chassis separately, and the total cost can climb quickly. If you're a startup that expects to stay under 20 terabytes for the next few years, you might be better off with a 6-bay desktop NAS that includes drives and a built-in 10 GB port, simply because the upfront price will be lower. Who should buy the RS1619xs Plus? Think of a small to medium-sized business that already has a structured IT environment, a dedicated network admin, a need for encrypted file services, and a plan to run virtual machines or Docker containers on the same hardware. The unit shines when you need predictable performance under multi-user load, when you want the ability to add a cache tier without buying a separate cache appliance, and when you anticipate growth beyond the 4 native bays. It also makes sense for IT consultants who deploy a standard platform across several client sites, because the rack mount form factor fits neatly into existing server racks. Who should skip it? If you're a home user, a hobby photographer, or a small office that only needs basic file sharing for a handful of laptops, the RS1619xs Plus is overkill. The need to buy drives separately, the